All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night book club. We are working through high performance habits. Um, I'm feeling super convicted on most of this book. So I don't know if you guys are feeling the same. You're like, wow, that's something I could definitely work on. This one, I will say we're going on habit 2, right? Habit 2. So we're talking about. I have this like habit 2, right? So we're going on habit 2, which is generating energy. And this one was interesting for me to read because this is definitely one that I struggle with. I think a lot is I tend to go more into the burnout mode. And I feel like a lot of us tend to, one of the big ways that we get stuck in a mindset trap is that burnout mindset because we're trying to do so much and balance so many things. This isn't a normal like 9 to 5 job where you can like clock in, clock out, and turn off your brain, right? It's very much of it's kind of going throughout the day. And even if you set office hours, I will say there's still like, it's still a little bit back there in the back of your head, like things you could be doing, should be doing. Is somebody messaging me? Is somebody, whatever. I'm constantly checking my messages. Does anybody need plexus? Is that where, on my messages all the time. And so it is a hard one, I think, to just turn off. But you have to have that because otherwise you head into that burnout mode and you're never really operating in those transitions. He was talking about the transitions that really matter when you're going into your next activity. So what I found myself, I don't know if you guys read through the transitions, but when he talked about when you're transitioning from one thing to another, if you're still catching up, he was basically saying like you have so many transitions throughout the day. And so like waking up and, getting ready in the morning, you're transitioning from like rest to awake, and then you're going to make dinner and take care of your kids or whatever. Like I thought through all of my transitions. Like now I'm transitioning into mom mode, and then then you go from mom mode into, well, now I've got to drive my kids to school, and so now you're on the road, and that's a different transition. And then I tend to forget to transition. I leave VeggieTales playing while I'm driving home and I'm still in mom mode, and then I get home and now it's like, okay, I got to get my office and I got to switch to business. And so those are all those different transitions. And if you don't take the time to reset in between those transitions, that's where things can get hairy and you can really deplete your energy. I think where I struggled the most reading that is I was like, it took me a while at first to realize what my transitions were, because I'm like, I don't really think sometimes I have the opportunity to wake up and then transition into mom mode. A lot of times it's my kid like slapping me on the face and I just get pulled out of it into mom mode, or all of a sudden, well, and I will say it's mainly with the kids, because even like today when I was kind of going over what I wanted to work on, I carved out some time for me to really just sit and like discuss what I wanted to talk about tonight. And it's like the kids kept coming down and mom, and I'm like now trying to transition. And that where he talks about like, how did he word it exactly? I can never think of how they word things when I'm releasing tensions and setting your intentions. When he talked about that and like how you take that little bit of time between, like, okay, I'm going to release that tension. I'm going to set my intentions for what I'm trying to do. I was laughing at myself because they kept coming down. I'll be like, and I was trying to practice it. So I'd be like, okay. And then they'd come and I'm like, I have reset this 18 times. I'm trying to do this. And so I think this is where it gets kind of difficult when you're in industry like ours and a profession like ours, especially when you're working at home with kids, is you've got to find ways to be intentional about those transitions and whatever that looks like. And so we've had to do a lot of, all right, y'all are going outside and doors gonna be shut. You can't come back in. I'm sorry. I need some time to really just focus in on my work and get this done. And I think teaching your kids the responsibility of you are transitioning into playing outside mode, and that's what you're going to be doing for a bit, is healthy. Those are some things I've had to like get off my brain too. Instead of feeling like I'm shoving my kids off to the side, I'm teaching them how to also have healthy boundaries, how to have healthy, just healthy activities outside of mom all the time. And, I think it's good to teach them those responsibilities. So all that to say, if you kind of were like thinking about all of that while you're talking through transitions, I'm just giving you a little bit of the grace that was given to me of like, no, this is good to teach them those things and to teach them how to be independent and self-sufficient, because at the end of the day, we're doing this as a family, right? This is a family business and we're doing this so that we can all succeed and grow together. And then he went into the what the transitions and setting intentions look like, releasing the tensions and setting intentions. I'm not a big like meditator, but I know that I'll pray a lot for those transitions. So for me, it's like, okay, take that minute to like, okay, Lord, like help me to release whatever that was that I was feeling that might have been negative in that moment. And then help me to just like enter into this next thing with gratitude and joy, bring the joy. He talks about bringing the joy. And so that's something I've really tried to practice too. And so one example I was thinking about when he was talking about bringing the joy, but also like being active, how like just being active will actually generate physical energy. And I was like, man, I find that I do that on Sunday mornings. I lead worship at our church every Sunday morning. And I'm getting ready to lead the first song and I want to do well. And I want to actually I'm like, okay, Lord, like I need you to like work through me, allow me to be a vessel. I don't want to like hinder the spirit at all. I don't want to hinder any type of flow. So like work through me. What is that? So I'll reset in that way, but it's hilarious because I'll find myself like, I'll like jump up and down. I like do like lunges and like move my arms and stuff. And it started out almost like funny with everybody on our team, but now that's just kind of like what I'm known for. But I'm like, if I don't do that, I'm almost more nervous going up there. It's something about just that movement, like generates that energy and the activity and gets me excited and kind of like gets me in a place of like bringing joy. So I've actually seen this work where he's like, exercise, releases all these chemicals and moving your body. It kind of resets everything into your body so you can let go of whatever you had before and like set intentions moving forward. So generating joy is a real thing. Like he was talking about the power plants, like they don't just have power. They have to generate power, whether that's spiritually, physically, mentally, like they have to generate that power to release it. They don't just have power. So whatever fills you up with joy, whatever fills you up with excitement, he talks about the 4 different what do you say? Something that gives you surprise, something that gives you wonder, something that's a challenge. Like every morning waking up, like what can I do these in today to challenge myself or surprise myself or, get me in a state of wonder, or how can I offer gratitude to somebody? I got thinking, I was like, man, what would that look like? Of course, this would be a lot of work, but I'm like, what would that look like in my business? Both my businesses, if I were to start at the A's in my Facebook and literally just start handwriting like 5 letters a day and just go down and just like mail the ones that I knew that maybe could, or just send them a message of how much I'm grateful for them with nothing attached to it. I was like, not only would that stir up my heart and get me excited and get me into an attitude of gratefulness, but it would also, allow them to connect to me on a deeper level. It would allow us to actually be able to relate to each other. They might actually start, I guess it would be kind of having strings attached, because you're thinking like that would actually, they'd start to see my stuff on face, all these different things. I'm like, what would that do for your business if you could really just start exercising gratitude? I loved where he talked about surprising somebody with an appreciation note or a thank you note or something every day, or something like surprising somebody with that gratitude every day. I just thought that was so important. So that's one I want to definitely put into action at some point. The other one where he's talking about, he has the 3 different ways. The bring the joy, we talked about that one. Really essential. What was the other one? Optimizing your health. This one was a big one for me. I found myself a couple months ago in a state of feeling just extremely overwhelmed with no transitions and just feeling so burnt out at the end of every day, basically falling into bed, dreading waking up the next morning because it was just going all over again. And I work with a personal trainer, and she was even like, Natalie, maybe we just need to take a time where I'm one thing off your plate just for a little bit. And I was like, yes, that sounds great. And so we took it off my plate for a little bit, and I'm already seeing where that's actually, yes, it's good. It was good in the moment at first. It was like, whew, one less thing I have to think about, but I'm seeing where it's taking me in a downward trend as far as like my productivity. And, I'm getting my stuff done, but I know that I could get it done faster, better, with more joy, with more excitement if I was consistently working out. And so I'm excited to get back into my regular workouts with her. But I just think that it's so important to keep moving your body and keep thinking about health. And one thing that I love about what we do and the supplements that we take and whatnot is that it actually, even if you're in a place where you're like, I have no willpower, which by the way, this is how I started the products. I have no willpower to change anything. I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to work out. I don't want to do any of those things. I'm really not willing to change it. If you just take your supplements and take your products every day, eventually they will change that for you. You will start to feel more active. You'll start to have more excited mood. You will start to crave those healthier options and not feel like you have to binge eat all the time or what, and you'll want to drink more water. That's what I love about what we do, is we kind of help people get out of that funk of, I'm just not willing to change. I'm not willing to make these, make the changes that I need to get further. It helps chemically to do that for them. So, anyways, I could keep going on. There was so many good nuggets in here. I felt like it was just like nugget after nugget after nugget after nugget after nugget, but those are kind of my main takeaways, and things that I want to look at and start changing. But I'm going to open it up. Did anyone have anything that stuck out to them specifically?
I really liked the part too where he was just talking about the importance of energy, and how he said that you really, really have to focus on it. And I connected with how he talked about you have to take it as seriously as like an NFL quarterback, just because my husband's super into football. And I was thinking about how he's always talking about, like, you don't know, like these guys like train this many hours a day and like they eat like this even in the off season and da 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 da. And I wasn't thinking of it like just for energy, but I was thinking of it like in our businesses, we have to like be doing it all the time, essentially, like with trainings and with bettering ourselves and keeping up our energy, even just like in our mindset and stuff. We have to do that all the time, or even, like in, let's say, off seasons, which might be like times of no momentum and stuff. And so for me, it just really stuck out to me, the importance of keeping your energy intentional. And I didn't even think of it, like I said, just as physical energy, but like I said, your mindset and stuff like that energy. If you just let it go, then you're not going to be the good quarterback. So
I thought it was interesting that he said, if you look at the studies, CEOs have just as much energy as NFL quarterbacks. I thought that was interesting too, because it's like, man, but they're channeling it in a different way, but it all comes from you generating energy, whatever that looks like. So it's still, like you said, a mindset more than it is having energy.
right. And so that's what I thought was really cool, because like I said, even though I'm like, well, we're not playing football, it really was just like, oh, like, yeah, that makes sense. So
Yep. So good.
I liked that too, Tina. And kind of going off that, I really appreciated the part under practice 3, optimize health. I really appreciated, I loved that whole section, but the get fit now section. And I so many things in here I connected with, but if you care about your contributions to the world, you'll care for yourself. And I think it's easy to put ourselves last, right? But we are health and wellness ambassadors. We are people who are sharing health and happiness all the time. And so I think it's really, and this is how I perceived and took this part. I think it's really important for us to take that seriously, because for one, we really want to be a product of the product, right? We're kind of a storefront. And so I think I love this, because in our job, it's super important for us not to only say, here are some supplements that are going to help you. Yes, they're going to help you, but it's a tool in the toolbox of lots of other tools, like eating well, like exercising, taking care of your body, eat well, feel well, perform well. It's really simple, right? And so I just really appreciated that part, that we should all really take that seriously, and not only post about and talk about our amazing supplements, but that this is what I'm doing along with them to get really good results in my life. and that exercising and eating well really, it has to all, kind of be wrapped up into one. So
For sure. It's funny that we sit here and we tell people this all day long, like it's a no-brainer, and it's just so easy to do. I know I do. And then I'm like, shoot, I haven't worked out in a while. There's days I'm like, take your supplements. I've been the last 2 days without mine. Or, admittedly, there's days where it's like that. And I'm like, why can I tell people this every day as if it's so easy? Yeah.
I'm gonna like piggyback off Sue here because that's something that I've been really challenged just myself with over the last like 3 months specifically, but just taking a serious evaluation of how well I'm doing some of these things in my own personal life that I'm coaching other people on, and just realizing that the power of them seeing action over them just hearing my words. Like, if I'm doing the things and living it out, that's a more powerful story than any of the words that I can put out there. And I have already like been seeing the results of just being faithful. Like, it feels weird. We were talking about this other day, just that I was like, I feel weird. Like, hey, I went to the gym, be proud of me. Like, I don't want it to come across that way. I want it to come across as like, I'm doing the things too. And if I can do these hard things, like you can too. And it truly, like we just talked about, like it 100% increases my energy. In Michigan, when it's freezing cold and dark out, like I want to stay in bed till like 9 o'clock, like put the last one on the bus and go back to bed. But I am to the gym by 6:45 and I come home and I'm like, yes, let's go, like tackle the world. And it has made a huge difference. And I think that just naturally like communicates to people. Another thing that I had highlighted in here was on the bottom of 98, where it says, when people want the edge, often the first place they look is outside themselves.
That's good.
And just the importance of, you can try all the things outside of yourself, but it takes like a very hard look inside yourself and mindset stuff, and just realizing like in the field that we're in, the most important conversation we can have is like digging to the root heart issues of why there's so much push against working out, or why do I feel like this can never be successful for me, or why do I feel already before I've started like I'm going to fail, and just coaching through all of that, because it really, I mean, I'm 8 years into it and finally like truly kind of grasping how important the mindset part of it is, and just realizing that's what people need, someone to breathe some life into them and be like, you can do this hard thing. Like, the only way you're going to get somewhere is to get past those things and like quit believing the lies about all of it. So yes, Sue, not to let them quit. Like, we've just been talking about that a lot. People need someone to help them not quit on themselves. And so
I love the mindset shift that you're talking about with like posting, not to be proud of me, but to show that like I'm doing the hard things too. I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not also working my way through.
yep, totally.
I love that. It's good.
I like going on the mindset thing where he talks about the mental triggers, because I feel like we always think of triggers in a negative way, and he just kind of spun that in a totally different direction and made it more positive, and rewiring your brain to use it as a positive mental trigger and gain something from it, instead of having all these negative triggers and then having more of a negative mindset. So I thought that was really interesting and something that I want to implement myself.
I love those triggers. I love the one where you talked about the door frame trigger, like entering a room and being like, what good can I find in this room? And I'm going to serve somebody or whatever. I thought that was so good. That was good, Jess. I like that.
Did anybody write down some triggers? I wrote down a few, but one that came to mind for me that I thought kind of sounds bad, but made me laugh. And I'm like, this is gonna be amazing, is when I hear the word mom. And it sounds bad. I love the word mom. I love hearing it, but I hear it sometimes 1,000 and more times a day. And sometimes it's like, you're putting a kid to bed and you're right there by their bed and you do all the hugs and kisses. And then every time without fail, I get to the door, mom. And then it's one more thing. And I go to shut the door, mom. I'm like, okay, so it's just like, sometimes it's like, what? So I'm like, okay, when I hear the word mom, I can, tell myself to think something that I absolutely love about that specific child or whatever, but just to kind of catch that initial want to be like, what, when the what comes out, when I start to get frustrated, because that's like the worst feeling too. Like, I don't want to be that way, but when you hear it a million times in a day and it's like repetitive or when you hear it 10 times in one breath and they can't even breathe in between the word.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was my kind of funny one, but really quick, I wanted to say a feedback. I thought it was extremely valuable. I loved the bring the joy and the fact that he brought up this whole intention on, because I think that's a huge struggle with, I mean, I've been there. I think a lot of us have been there where you just, well, what happens when you don't feel joyful or you don't feel like it, or you don't have the energy of the excitement or whatever, like the day's draining. You've had a long day, bad things happen, whatever. So he, a lot of times we'll just say, well, I mean, I think like, well, okay, you treat it like a business. You just do it even if you don't feel like it, right? You do it even if you're scared about it. You do it if you don't feel like it. It needs to get done. So just do it. But he doesn't even go there with that. He says, what happens when life isn't joyous, then, or if people around you are negative or whatever, he's just like, you better change that. It's like, you find the joy, you decide to be joyful. And he goes through a lot more detail than that, but it's not just, okay, well, do it anyway. Do it just because you need to. Treat it like a business. It's no, make a choice to find joy in your day, to find joy in what you're doing, to be excited, to bring the energy. And he goes through obviously the specifics of how to, but I just thought that was extremely impactful to completely change the whole narrative of, this is an option, this is a choice. And even when you don't feel like it, you can decide otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm. It reminded me a little bit of what Eric Worre talked about over the weekend about, well, it was within his training. I don't remember if it's him or whatever, but where he was talking about how like your energy, like people feel energies, so it's like if you've got, or it was the health guru, and he's like, if you've got, an energy that's off from, as far as like, if you're negative, people sense that. We say it all the time, like in messages, like people aren't responding. Well, I'm saying the same thing. Well, somehow negativity or like pessimism always comes through in your messages, whether you intend to or not. So it's that same concept, Jamie. Like if you don't change that before you go in and find the joy and find something to be grateful for and like change your attitude, it will come through in your work. And then you're just going backwards. It's not effective work. And I have one kid that I don't think I would ever stop thinking about them all day if I had to think about them every time they said mom. It's fine. All right. My favorite is when they're like, mom, and they don't have anything to say. They just mom and then for a long time. Yeah, it's the bedtime routine. Anyone else have anything? I did write down, this is maybe personal, but where he talked about his wife, and he said that well, it wasn't his, it was a different person, but every time their wife called their name, they would say to themselves, you're on planet for this woman, bring joy to her life. I was like, that's probably something I could exercise better with my own husband. And not so much that I do the opposite, but it's just, it gets mundane after a while, right? Where you just kind of live together and you do life together or whatever. And I'm like, what would that look like if every time, he said my name, if I was like, okay, how can I bring joy to his life right now? Like, what would that change within our household and our marriage and whatnot? And get us out of that just mundane roommate feeling situation.
Feel like everything I had highlighted to talk about, you guys touched on. It's really, really good chapter. One thing I was going to add to the triggers thing, I don't know if you guys caught, and now I lost what page that was on, but he was talking about how, like in the clarity chapter, words that are important to you, like if you have like your core values, basically, like if you have clarity with your life, you know, like what your core values are and what things are really meaningful to you, you can set triggers specific to that. And the last time I read this book, I still have alarms in my phone for like, what do I want to bring to my business, like as a leader or, whatever. And so, like one of them was, I want to be a life-giving, intentional servant leader. And that would go off at whatever time every day. So really encourage you to do that. I think that was a really good way for me to renew my mind when I was not feeling like the joy, like what Jaime said. I had a lot of hard personal stuff going on. And I loved what he said, like you can will through that, like you can will the joy and will the, those feelings or whatever. And then the other thing I was going to say is on top of 113, kind of where he's talking about like how to will those positive states, basically. I really, one thing that I focused in on, I try to do like one thing at a time and then just really hone in on it and be intentional. I was finding myself kind of getting in this negative state where like if you get no's a lot, or like I was getting on the phone with, it's like I got business potentials on the phone, but then I was not getting the outcome that I wanted. And so I really, really intentionally anticipated a positive outcome. And I was just talking to Jaime about this at the Eric Worre training. Like I would stop, and because like as a mom, you get the mom all day, and then you have this business potential phone call and you go into it stressed and whatever, so I would stop, I'd make myself transition. And in the transition, I would visualize and anticipate a good outcome. And the difference has been phenomenal. And it's also just, I think it's helped my sanity, where I'd come off those calls sometimes and like, how you feel like, man, I don't feel like I gave that my best. So then you have like the guilt too. And the whole thing just is like this landslide. So I feel like the transition, I agree. I feel like you touched on that really well, Natalie. That was huge for me, because there are lots of transitions throughout the day, especially if you have your office hours scattered or whatever. I think that's probably something else I was thinking too, is probably a good like reason to not have your office hours everywhere, so you don't have to transition as many times.
Right.
But transitioning with that like visualization and anticipating a good outcome, even if it's like with your reach outs or whatever. So just wanted to share that.
I took a lot of notes on those too, basically, on how to apply those different things into my business. It's really hard sometimes, admittedly, though, like when you are feeling that amount of stress, to just like, sometimes you could be so in a negative place where you're like, I just want to be mad for a little bit, but you have to like snap out of it to like have a positive outcome with your business. And so I think it's just, I love the little affirmations that you were setting for yourself throughout the day. It's like basically setting your positive self up to affirm your negative self when you're not feeling it. That might be something I'm going to have to put into practice, because I just know that there are so many times where it's like, I can't even get out of this weird little mind trash thing to try and like get into a positive space to get on this phone call or do this reach out or whatever, That's a really great idea. All right. Anybody else? Anything? Okay. Sounds like a good spot to wrap it up. So, all right, well, try and put some of these things into practice this week. I'll be interested to see like if anybody has anything to share on how they were able to, practice these things. I know that there's a few that I've written down too that I'm definitely going to be putting into motion tonight, trying to transition into sleep time. So, anyways, love you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Talk to you later.